Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party was for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 17, Episode 14, and the guests this week were Detox and Valentina. So today we're going to be talking about Suzie Toot clapped back at Trinity The Tuck. Detox says that Drag Race will never ask her to be back on the show. And Detox makes a comment about when she apparently, quote, drugged Willam. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Also, if you love these Roscoe's recaps, please just do me a favour and make sure you hit subscribe and show your support, because it really does help my channel and allows me to keep making videos for you all, so thank you! So they started off by saying that Detox was running late because she was stuck in traffic, and Valentina said Detox is always on time, whereas Valentina is always late. And while Detox and Valentina were doing the Work the World tour together, Valentina said Detox, quote, got mad at me so many times and screamed at Valentina saying it was so unprofessional that she was late and things like that. So Valentina said it was funny that the roles were switched today. Host Naysha Lopez then joked that Valentina should mention it to Detox when she arrives. Then, after the commercial break, Detox arrived and Naysha said that Valentina had something to say. Valentina jokingly said, quote, how dare you, and they all laughed. Detox said while she was driving over today, she knew that, quote, Valentina is peeing herself with joy and amusement because Detox was late. Detox joked that she arrived with, quote, my tail between my legs and my D in my ass, so she can now bow down at the throne of Valentina and say, quote, we're all the same, aren't we? And everyone laughed. They then talked about who their favourite queens are this season, and Detox said she loves Anya, Lexi, and she misses Lydia B. Collins. But Detox said that regardless of who wins the season, Kori King is winning and is, quote, killing the internet game. Just to explain in case you don't know, throughout the airing of Drag Race, Kori has been posting lots of random funny videos on her social media where she dresses up in different outfits such as Michael Jackson, Roger the Alien from American Dad, Suzie Toot, and very recently she also dressed up as Shrek. Kori has then been filming cameo videos while in costume and generally being very funny and kind of unhinged. At one point, Kori was even number 1 on the cameo leaderboard, although as of right now she has moved to number 3, but this still means that she must have sold a lot of cameos. And at Roscoe's, they said Kori is destroying it on social media, and she went onto Drag Race to have fun, got a relationship out of it, and has had a lot of success as well. They then watched the photo shoots from this week's episode, and Naysha said, quote, so there was a clear bottom, and Detox screamed laughing. Naysha asked Valentina who she thought struggled, and Valentina said Suzie Toot, and they all seemed to agree. Valentina said, quote, because of the way she looks. And there was a slight pause and everyone burst out laughing and the audience screamed. But Valentina continued, and what she meant to say was the way she looks in front of Albert Sanchez, the famed photographer. Detox then asked, did Suzie not have something a bit more over the top and showgirly that she could have worn for the photo shoot? Detox said she understands what Suzie's style is, but when you're on Drag Race, you need to, quote, step outside your box for these types of challenges, and Suzie could have elevated it. Detox then said it looked a bit like, quote, a little costume in a bag from Spirit, which is a low-cost Halloween costume retailer in the US. A few people in the audience gasped, and Detox asked if she was wrong, and they all said no, and Valentina said, quote, there's more like the makeup, and everyone laughed again. Naysha then said it's true, and the judges often say things like stop relying on your body or your beauty, but Suzie is relying on her personality. They also mentioned that Lexi seemed to lack confidence in the photo shoot as well, even though she looked good. And Detox said she's worked with Lexi for years before Drag Race, but she's never seen this dynamic of Lexi before, presumably meaning the lack of confidence. Detox explained that that's what happens when you're on Drag Race, because it's a, quote, pressure cooker, and you never know how you're going to react to it. They then watched the interviews that the Queens did with the Latrice Royale, and in particular Lexi Love's interview. Naysha said with the current political climate, it's so important to address people's trans journey and celebrate that they don't have to hide and they can live authentically. Naysha then said, speaking of living their authentic selves, Detox has recently come out as trans, and everyone clapped and cheered for Detox. Detox joked that she sort of came out accidentally, and most people weren't even surprised, and some people even thought that Detox was already out as trans, and they joked that, quote, the closet is glass. Detox said, though, that it is more official now and she's been more vocal about it, but people like Naysha have known for a long time because they're good friends, and they had a conversation about it about 2 years ago where Detox said she wasn't happy and she had been, quote, suppressing those feelings for a long time. Detox then joked that one time when she and Roxy Andrews were together at Roscoe's, because she's really close with Naysha and Roxy, they kept trying to, quote, out me, and kept saying that Detox had some news that she wanted to share, and Detox was, quote, seething at them. But just to make it clear, Detox was smiling when she said this, so clearly it was a joke and was not meant seriously. But Detox then joked and said, quote, joke's on you, I've been putting estrogen in your drinks all night, and everyone laughed. Detox then said, quote, just like I drugged Willam, I'm making the world trans. Just to explain that reference about drugging Willam in case you don't know, this is kind of a well-known niche thing within the Drag Race fandom that happened many years ago. So, several years ago, it came out that Detox, as well as her drag daughter, Vicky Vox, had put some drugs in Willam's drink. Detox and Vicky have also talked about this in interviews as well, and Willam apparently wrote about it in her book. I found an old Reddit thread with screenshots of what appears to be Facebook posts from Willam, where someone asked Willam about this, and even said they'd heard that Willam asked Detox and Vicky to do it. It's quite a long post, but basically Willam said she'd done some substances at Burning Man, and she was excited to tell Detox when she saw her, because Willam had basically been a teetotaler for most of her life. But when Willam told Detox that she had done substances for the first time, Detox said no, it's not the first time, because, quote, we used to put it in your drinks. And she said it happened more than once. Willam said she wasn't mad about it, she was just shocked. Then later in the post, Willam said that she had once willingly drank from a water bottle that she knew had narcotics in it, but she didn't know what exactly it was. However, there was a time that someone did put something in her drink at a DWV concert without Willam's knowledge, and that was not okay, but Willam didn't specify who it was. However, Willam said she had no ill will and she knows Detox and Vicky would never have let anything bad happen to her, and they're all okay now. But going back to Roscoe's, and Detox continued talking about coming out as trans and said how liberating it was. She also mentioned how the news came out, which was when she was at the Drag Pack event with Willam, and she flippantly said, quote, I'm trans now.
I'm trans now! I wanna go!
Detox explained that when she said that, she was in a room with all of her friends and loved ones who all knew already, and she didn't expect that she was going to say it, it just kind of came out, and in fact, she had actually forgotten that she said it. But then the next day, the news spread on social media about Detox coming out, but Detox said, quote, that's not at all what I wanted, because she had been trying to, quote, cradle it and nurture it, and she had been dealing with these feelings since she was a child, and she wanted to protect herself as much as possible, but she's happy to talk about it now. Naysha then asked Valentina about coming out as trans too, because Valentina had previously identified as non-binary, and she had even spoken about the struggles that she had with her gender identity. But then very recently, on the Trans Day of Visibility in April 2025, Valentina posted photos of herself saying, Happy Trans Day of Visibility, and seemingly came out as trans. Valentina explained that she is at a point of, quote, metamorphosis, and she's doing a deep dive to, quote, find the woman in me, and she's happy just saying that for now because she doesn't want to go into too many details. But she finished by saying, quote, when I fully transition, I don't just want to transition, I want to transcend. And everyone clapped and cheered for Valentina. They moved on and they watched the Queen's performance of the song Gift Shop. At Roscoe's, they all seemed confused because they thought the queens would be writing their own verses and they didn't seem to like the song. Valentina said, quote, "Do you want to meet them at the gift shop? What is your answer? Because I would say no thank you," and everyone laughed. Naysha then said Detox had made an observation while watching the performance and asked Detox to repeat it. Detox said, quote, "Did Suzie Toot run out of wigs?" and everyone laughed. Detox said that Suzie has worn the same wig throughout the episode. Host Caramel said that Sam Star also wore the same wig, and Naysha agreed and said the difference is, quote, "Do I wear a 3 5 times or do I wear a 9 3 times?" Naysha then said that, quote, "That shake and go has not been shaken and it needs to go." Detox joked that she hadn't gone as far as saying that, but Naysha said don't make her look like the villain and you don't even know the things that Detox was saying, and Detox laughed. They continued talking about the fact that they thought the queens were going to write their own verses to the song, and they questioned why they just performed the song as it was. Detox said, "Let's be real, and this is just an opportunity for RuPaul to sell tickets to the show and also to sell a CD. Detox then said, quote, "And no one's buying that track on Amazon." They then watched the runway for this week, and the category was opulent outerwear. Naysha said, quote, "We'll start with everyone's favourite Suzie Toot." And Naysha smiled and questioned why people in the audience had laughed, and Batty said because she had prompted them. But they all said Suzie's look on the runway was great, and she should have worn that for the challenge. Naysha then said she wishes that Suzie had stuck to her aesthetic for the entire season to do the 1920s flapper style, and then said, quote, "This is my drag, like it or not." They then talked about Sam Star's look, and Valentina said, quote, "It looked borrowed," and some people in the audience sounded a bit shocked. But the host said that it probably was borrowed because when Sam was at Roscoe's a few weeks ago, she said she borrowed a lot of stuff from her drag mother, Trinity The Tuck, as well as her drag aunt, Chantel Sparkles, and Trinity had insisted that they should not spend all that money when they go to Drag Race when they already have so much stuff that they can lend them. But Valentina said about Sam's outfit that it wasn't really her, and Naysha said that it was, quote, older. Detox joked that they kept zooming in on the clasp on the outfit that was too big for her and it was very visible, which Detox said was shady. The other host, Batty Davis, said that this episode, the judges critiqued Sam, saying her confidence had turned into being shady and cocky. But at the beginning of the season, they told Sam that she needed to open up, but now they're saying that she was being overly confident. Detox said the judges don't see what happens backstage when the queens are keying and reading each other, but it's all in love and it's the way that queens are. And so Detox thinks Michelle's comment to Sam was because she's only ever seen her on stage, and the judges asked Sam to show more of herself and now they're saying that she needs to reel it in. Detox then said about Michelle, quote, "Calm down." Naysha said her favourite thing is when Michelle says a critique that in her opinion is, quote, very produced. And Detox said, quote, in her ear, implying that Michelle is perhaps told what to say in her earpiece. Naysha said her favourite thing is when Michelle says something like that, but then the guest judge disagrees, and Michelle then looks annoyed, and both Detox and Valentina agreed. They then watched the part of the episode where Suzie got eliminated, and they all clapped and cheered for Suzie. Naysha said at Roscoe's they love Suzie, and when she was there several weeks ago as a guest, Naysha had said to Suzie that she had, quote, winner energy because of her confidence. Naysha then asked the others if they think that Suzie's confidence evolved to a certain level of cockiness, which may have affected her run on the show. Detox said we all saw early on when Suzie did really well at the beginning and got, quote, really comfortable at projecting and letting people know that she was the front runner. And also Lexi kept saying that Suzie was big competition and it probably gave Suzie, quote, a big head and it inflates your ego. But Caramel pointed out that Suzie had not placed in the bottom the entire season up until this episode. Detox said the only time we saw Suzie's confidence shake a bit was last week during the makeover challenge. But Detox said although a lot of people did not like the relationship between Suzie and her mother, Detox loved it because Suzie's mother showed up for her child and she could have easily said no, but she didn't. But Detox thinks that this may have, quote, threw a wrench in the system for Suzie because she was so caught up in those emotions with her mother. They then watched Untucked for this week, and Detox said that she wanted to say something, and she then said, quote, "I'm sorry, Michelle, because after witnessing what I just witnessed in Untucked, I get it. That Sam star was cocky as F." Detox said she understands that Sam may be, quote, under duress because she's in the bottom and she may be deflecting. But she said Sam's behaviour was, quote, a lot, but Detox said she was entertained by it. Naysha said her opinion is that it's quite similar to when Luxe Noir London was on the show, and she came onto the show with a lot of confidence, but she also got a lot of backlash because of it. But Naysha said the alternative is that you go in and say things like, I suck, or I could have done better, and then you get in your head. And in Naysha's opinion, confidence will take you so much further than trying to be humble. Detox agreed and said her issue was that some of the things Sam said were, quote, a little bratty. But they all said she wasn't like that at the beginning of the season. It only happened because the judges told her she needed to open up and be more vulnerable. They moved on and talked about the guest judges coming into Untucked, and Detox shared a story that on season 5, the guest judges were not allowed to speak to the queens or come backstage. And the only time it happened was with the Pointer Sisters. The queens were all waiting outside because back then, once you got eliminated, you had to go right into filming your confessionals, and all of the other queens had to wait outside until they were done in the workroom. And during that time, the Pointer Sisters were outside, and they were told they were not allowed to go to the queens, but, quote, the tall one lit a cigarette, strutted over to the queens and said, quote, that was some fun bleep. The queens then got to kiki with them for a minute, but then the production staff came over and told them they had to go because they weren't allowed. But Detox said it meant a lot to the queens that the Pointer Sisters did that. Naysha asked Valentina what her favourite memory from Drag Race was. Valentina said the kiki in the van with the other queens was good, and Alexis Michelle had some crazy stories about getting trade, and one of the stories involved Alexis being in a store and a man helped her try on underwear in the dressing room. Naysha agreed and said that Alexis's stories are wild, and sometimes you don't know how to react to them, and you look around because you feel a certain way, and you're wondering if everyone else feels the same way too. They then announced that the guests next week at Roscoe's are going to be Thorgy Thor, Jessica Wilde and Jules Sparkles. Naysha said Jules is the only queen from season 17 who has not been at Roscoe's so far, and she was due to be there previously, but because of the 1000th Drag Race live show in Vegas that happened, WoW pulled all of the contestants to be in the audience, which meant that Jules had to miss Roscoe's. But Jules had a last-minute cancellation recently, and she called up Roscoe's and said she wanted to use that opportunity to come to Roscoe's, so she is going to be there next week, and everyone cheered. They moved on to the Q&A, and there was a question for Detox, which was that the last time she was at Roscoe's with Roxy during All Stars 9, Detox had said that she had, quote, an itch to go back to All Stars, and so the question was, would Detox go back? Detox said although she loves Angeria, she was mad that Roxy did not win All Stars 9, and Detox was, quote, drunk and said some things on Twitter saying that Roxy should have won, and people got annoyed thinking that Detox was invalidating Angeria's win. But Detox said she and Angeria are friends and they're all good. Detox then said that at first she said she'd never go back to Drag Race, but then seeing Roxy go back, she thought maybe. But then Detox said, quote, they'll never have me back, I'll tell you this, World of Wonder and Drag Race will never ask me to come back. But she does think about it all the time because it was a fun experience. Naysha said that in her opinion, after the All Winners season as well as All Stars 8, quote, they have had to deal with a lot of strong personalities behind the scenes that they will never do it again. Naysha also said they're not going to bring back people like Detox and Valentina who are going to stand up for themselves and say that they're not going to do something. Detox then said that she already, quote, said a lot of bleep during her time on All Stars and presumably said no to things, which is maybe what Detox meant when she said that they would never ask her to come back. But Detox said she thinks that they need to take a break with All Stars because we're, quote, oversaturated with Drag Race, and if they took a break between All Stars, it would make people more excited. Naysha said the problem with that is that they don't make millions and millions of dollars if they do that. Detox then said they're good because she hasn't got a check for the song Read You Wrote You in about 4 years, even though it's only about 10 cents. There was then another question, which was, what is the difference between US fans and international fans? Naysha joked that although she loves US fans, she thinks they can be a little bit more critical than the international fans, and the international fans are more appreciative of what they see. Valentina said, in general, the Drag Race fanaticism is just, quote, the craziest one that exists, whether it's in the US or international. Naysha finished by saying you should just love on the queens a bit more instead of being mean or critical and try and find something nice to say. And then finally, I wanted to mention something that is slightly outside of Roscoe's to do with Suzie Toot's recent clapback at Trinity The Tuck. You may remember that a few weeks ago, when Sam and Trinity were the guests at Roscoe's, Trinity had said that she did not vibe with Suzie, and that Suzie was the only queen from season 17 that Trinity did not follow on social media. Afterwards, there was a lot of backlash, and Trinity even talked about her feelings towards Suzie on her YouTube review show, and explained why she said those things. At the time, Suzie even vaguely clapped back at Trinity and tweeted saying, "God, the messy things I yearn to tweet and still I choose peace." And she said in a subsequent tweet that she doesn't follow Trinity. Well, it looks like Suzie has now clapped back again in a funny way. In a recent interview with Joey Nolfi from Entertainment Weekly, Joey asked Suzie about what Trinity had said about her at Roscoe's. Suzie said, quote, "I have not had a conversation with Mrs. Tuck. I don't harbour ill will at all. I'm coming out with merch that says F Suzie Toot, and I did send one to Trinity because I thought she'd appreciate it. I think I've learned her taste by now and I think she'd like it." Suzie also added that she got Trinity's address through her management. Joey clarified that what Suzie was saying is that she sent Trinity a t-shirt that says F Suzie Toot on it. Suzie said, quote, "Absolutely. I sent one to Willam, I sent one to Lexi. I want it to be a big thing. People say it all the time, so I figured I'd give them a uniform to wear." And Suzie even tweeted a photo of her merch t-shirts as well. The reason Suzie mentioned Willam as well is presumably because Willam has made a few critical comments about Suzie on her podcast Race Chaser. And there was even a post on their Instagram where Willam joked that she had a problem because she actually liked one of Suzie's looks and she didn't realise that it was Suzie when she saw it. So this is presumably why Suzie also sent Willam one of the t-shirts that says F Suzie Toot on it. But I just thought that this was a fun bit of tea, and the full Entertainment Weekly interview with Suzie was very interesting, and you should go and check it out, and I'll link to it in the description. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 17, Episode 14. Do you agree with Suzie's elimination this week? And who do you think is going to make top 2? Let me know in the comments. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my 2 newest Patreon members, Natalie and Asia, who joined in the You're a Winner Baby tier. Natalie and Asia, you are both winners, baby. If you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos and access to the exclusive Patreon chat, please check out my Patreon because it just costs a few dollars a month. It really helps support my channel and it really does make a huge difference to me being able to make these videos. So please check it out and I'll put a link in the description. And I'd just like to say thank you so much to all of my existing Patreon members. Your support really, really does blow me away every single time. I love the community I've built on Patreon and I love talking to you all on Patreon. So thank you so much for your continued support. It really does mean more than you know. Please make sure you like and comment on my videos because it really helps boost the video in the algorithm and promote it to more people. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you liked this video and you want to see more of them. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in a future video. Thank you, bye!